Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. The wind howled across the sprawling grounds of the young and the restless Newman ranch, rattling bare branches and sending dry leaves skittering across the long stone driveway. Inside the grand living room, however, the storm brewing outside was nothing compared to the one igniting within Nick Newman. Nick stood near the fireplace, his jaw tight, his hands planted on his hips as if that were the only way to keep himself from tearing the entire room apart. The words still rang in his ears. The judge tossed the case. Matt Clark was free. Again. Victor Newman remained seated in his leather chair, composed as always, fingers steepled beneath his chin. His expression gave away nothing, but his eyes were sharp, calculating. He had seen many crises come and go in Genoa City, but this one involved his son's fury, and that was a variable even Victor could not entirely control. They just let him walk, Nick bit out, packing now. All that evidence, everything we've been through, and they just let him walk. Victor's voice was steady. The prosecution's case fell apart. Without solid testimony and corroboration, the judge had no choice. Nick whirled around. No choice, Dad. This guy has terrorized this family. He went after Sharon. He manipulated people. He's been obsessed with revenge, and now he's out there. Victor rose slowly, commanding the space without raising his voice. Calm down. Don't tell me to calm down, Nick snapped. You said you'd handle it last time, you promised. Victor's eyes darkened. And I did handle it. The man was behind bars. For how long? Nick shot back, because it clearly wasn't long enough. There was a beat of silence, heavy, charged. Victor finally admitted. After his release, Matt disappeared. Nick froze. Disappeared. Yes, no forwarding address, no public statement. He vanished. Nick's heart thudded harder. That's worse. You know that's worse, right? That means he's planning something. Victor's gaze hardened. If he makes a move against this family, he will regret it. Nick let out a harsh laugh. He already has, Dad, and he keeps coming back. That's the problem. Victor stepped closer. I give you my word, this ends now. I will shut Matt Clark down for good. But Nick wasn't comforted. He'd heard vows like this before. The Newman patriarch always promised protection, always assured control, yet somehow chaos found its way back to their door. I'm not waiting around, Nick said finally, not this time. Victor's eyes narrowed. What are you planning? Nick didn't answer. He just grabbed his jacket and headed for the door. At Crimson Lights, the familiar scent of espresso and warm pastries filled the air, but there was no comfort in it for Sharon Newman. She stood behind the counter, distracted, her thoughts already tangled in unease she couldn't quite name. When the bell over the door jingled and Nick walked in, one look at his face told her everything. No, she whispered. Nick approached, lowering his voice. He's out. Sharon's hand gripped the edge of the counter. Matt. Nick nodded grimly. Judge dismissed the case. Lack of evidence. He walked. For a moment, Sharon couldn't breathe. Images flashed through her mind, the tension, the manipulation, the way Matt had wormed himself into situations before. The danger he represented wasn't just physical, it was psychological. Where is he? She asked. That's the thing, Nick said. He disappeared. Sharon's eyes filled with fury. He's not going to stop. No, Nick agreed. He's not. She stepped out from behind the counter. What did your father say? He promised to handle it. Sharon gave him a look. And you believe that? Nick hesitated. I believe he thinks he can. That's not the same thing. Nick exhaled. That's why I came here. I'm not sitting back and waiting for Matt to make his next move. We need to get ahead of him. Sharon studied him carefully. What are you suggesting? A plan, Nick said. We draw him out, force him to show his hand. Sharon's pulse quickened. The idea was risky, but doing nothing felt worse. He's obsessed, she murmured, with revenge, with proving he's smarter than everyone else. Then we use that, Nick replied. They stood close now, united by shared fear and shared determination. If we do this, Sharon said, we do it smart, no reckless moves. Nick nodded, agreed. But both of them knew something else. Once they started down this road, there was no turning back. Across town, Devon Winters stormed into the penthouse Kane Ashby had been using as a base of operations. The tension in the room was immediate. Kane looked up from his phone, clearly startled. Devon. What the hell did you do? Devon demanded. Kane stood slowly. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't play dumb with me, Devon snapped. I just heard some interesting information about Lily and the twins. Kane's expression shifted. Who told you? That doesn't matter, Devon shot back. What matters is that Matty and Charlie are caught up in this mess, again. Kane ran a hand through his hair. It's not what you think. Then explain it, Devon roared. Behind Devon's rage was fear. Lily was his sister, the twins were his niece and nephew. The idea that they could be in danger, even indirectly, was unacceptable. Kane held up his hands. Lily knows what's going on. Devon blinked. What? She's in the loop, Kane said carefully. Victor's strategy, the moves being made. Lily isn't in the dark. Devon's jaw tightened. So you're telling me this isn't some kind of abduction? It's not, Kane insisted. There's a bigger picture. But Devon didn't look convinced. You put my family in a situation where it even looks like they're at risk, he said coldly. That's enough. Kane stepped forward. You think I would ever intentionally endanger my own children? Devon's eyes flashed. Intentions don't matter if the result is the same. The situation had grown even more complicated now that Phyllis Summers had gained control of Newman Enterprises, with Billy Abbott's help. Power in Genoa City had shifted. And when power shifts, collateral damage follows. Kane's voice dropped. I'm doing everything I can to get my family back where they belong. Devon shook his head. You should have thought about that before dragging them into this. As Devon turned to leave, his warning hung in the air. If anything happens to Lily or those kids, he said, I won't just be yelling next time. Kane stood alone after Devon exited, the weight of consequences pressing down on him. Meanwhile, Nick and Sharon sat at a quiet corner table at Crimson Lights, heads bent together. We leak something, Nick suggested. Make it look like we have information that could send him back to prison. Sharon considered it. He won't be able to resist checking it out. And when he does, Nick said, we're ready. Sharon met his eyes. This has to be airtight. Nick nodded. It will be. But as they finalized the early stages of their plan, neither realized just how many moving pieces were already in motion, or how dangerously close Matt Clark might already be. Night fell heavily over Genoa City. At the Newman Ranch, Victor stood alone in his study, staring out into the darkness. He had resources, surveillance, private investigators, contacts. Matt Clark might have vanished, but no one stayed invisible forever. Victor picked up his phone. Find him, he ordered simply. I don't care how. He would not allow this threat to fester. Elsewhere, Sharon locked up Crimson Lights, her nerves humming. She replayed every detail of her conversation with Nick. The plan was bold, maybe even reckless, but she understood why it was necessary. If Matt was plotting revenge, they needed to strike first. Nick, meanwhile, sat in his car outside Sharon's place long after she went inside. He scanned the shadows instinctively. Every passing vehicle made his muscles tense. He refused to let his guard down. Across town, Devon met with Nate Hastings. His frustration hadn't cooled. We can't keep letting Victor orchestrate everything behind closed doors, Devon said. If Lily's involved in some secret strategy, I want to hear it from her, not filtered through Kane. Nate nodded. You think Victor, controlling more than he's admitting? I think he always is. They shared a look. A confrontation was coming, and soon. Back at his temporary residence, Kane stared at a photo of Lily and the twins. His voice was low, almost a vow. I'll fix this. But fixing it meant navigating a battlefield where loyalties were fragile and trust was scarce. And somewhere in the city, unseen, Matt Clark watched. He had expected outrage, he had expected fury. What he hadn't expected was how quickly the Newmans would scramble. He smiled to himself. They thought they were planning. They had no ideas. The next morning, tension stretched tight across multiple households. Victor summoned Devon and Nate to Newman Enterprises later that week, determined to address their concerns head-on. Nick and Sharon finalized their strategy, setting subtle traps designed to flush Matt into the open. Devon prepared to demand answers. Kane braced for fallout. And as alliances shifted and tempers flared, one truth became undeniable. The fight against Matt Clark was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. And in Genoa City, when powerful families go to war, no one walks away untouched.